So what I have for you today is pretty exciting. This is the Ride1Up Revv1 DRT or Dirt model. This is the most rugged and off-road ready version of the Revv1, which we already dubbed our top pick for moped-style e-bikes. Now Ride1Up says this was tailor-made for enhancing off-road adventures. So does it hit the mark? Let's find out in today's review. Welcome back everybody, I'm Griffin with Electric Bike Report, and as a reminder, you can help out our channel by subscribing and hitting the notification bell down below. It's what makes all the testing that we do here possible. Now, if you're looking for an e-bike for getting around, but consider yourself a bit of an adventure seeker, that might lead you to the Revv1 Dirt here. It takes an already proven bike design that is wicked fun for commuting, but it upgrades the suspension and changes up the wheels and geo a bit to make it more off-road capable. Overall, I'd say this bike has a fitting value for its price tag. Now, right now, tariffs are impacting the e-bike industry and prices are more volatile than usual, so I'll paint with broad strokes here and say that the Dirt is going for around $2,500 to $2,600. Make sure to click the pricing link in the description for up-to-date pricing though. So let's walk through my top 3 highlights before we examine the rest of the spec. So first things first, let's talk about the suspension. There is a double crown RST fork with 150 millimeters of travel and a preload adjustment. And towards the rear, we have the D&M coil suspension with 76 millimeters of travel that has a rebound and compression adjustment too. Now this adds a lot of welcome softness to the ride and makes scrambling over rocks and roots much easier. I thought it felt nice just going into corners on the road too, and once dialed in, it didn't readily bottom out for me despite retaining a pretty cushy feel. Now the second big thing was these tires. This is a custom tire from Innova that is 20 by 4 inches. It's more of a dual sport tire, so its tread does pretty well both on-road and off. It holds speed nicely in a straight line and is actually quieter than I originally expected on the road, but there's still good traction for riding over dirt and gravel too. Along with the tires are wheels that have 12 gauge stainless steel spokes. This is another change from either the Revv1 hardtail or full suspension models, which include cast alloy rims. Now personally, I love the look of the alloy rims, but these spokes are more practical for the off-road intent as they give the flex that's needed for uneven terrain. The final big point to cover is of course the star of an e-bike, and that's the motor. Ride1Up put a 52 volt Bafang hub motor on here that has 1000 watts of power and 95 Newton meters of torque. I mean, it's fun, it's fast, and as you'll see in our hill test in a bit, it climbs pretty well. One of my favorite things about it though is it does have an unrestricted off-road mode that will allow you to throttle up to speeds in the 30s. That's not legal to do in most places except private land or on OHV trails, so definitely check to use that where permissible. Now, so those were the top highlights, but there's definitely a lot more to cover, so let's run through the rest of the spec. The Revv1 Dirt's motor is fed off a 1040 watt-hour Samsung battery. Ride1Up seems to have a dual battery setup in the works too, with some additional parts currently listed under pre-order, so keep an eye out for that. The brakes are very effective. It's a pair of the LBN 4-piston hydraulics on 203mm rotors front and rear. This saddle is a sporty one that's still plenty plush. It's one of my favorites on a moped-style e-bike to be honest, but that's just my personal opinion. Now I haven't confirmed this, but just a note that the shape of this one might not be as friendly for a passenger if you take advantage of the mounting point for pegs down below, but I'm gonna list that under TBD for right now till I can actually try it. The drivetrain is a simple single speed on a KMC chain. It's a 38 tooth chainring and 14 tooth freewheel. Let's be honest though, you're not going to do a ton of pedaling with a ride like this, but you will get a lot of use from the throttle, so let's go through the cockpit. The handlebar is a riser bar, 720mm wide with a 25-degree back sweep. The grips are a nice textured rubber. On the right side of the handlebar, you have that twist grip throttle and a button for the horn as well as high and low beam function of the headlight. Over on the left is the control panel, and then in the center is one of the larger e-bike displays that we've encountered. It's a large 3.5-inch display that gives you all your basics like speed, assist level, odometer, and a power measure readout. It does include a bar-based readout. I'm just shy of begging the e-bike industry to switch to percentage-based readouts at this point, but I digress. It at least drops bars at a pretty steady rate, which is nice. Now, a handful of nice accessories are included too. There are some dirt bike inspired plastic fenders on the front and rear. The headlight is a massive round moto style with 120 lux beam. and you get a rear brake light too. Last but not least, you'll notice in this center diamond or trapezoid or whatever shape that is, there is a MOLLE panel. You could fix it to carry multi-tools or something like that, but to me, I think it just adds to the aesthetic mostly, but I think it's pretty sweet. Now that covers all the stuff on the Revv1 Dirt. Now let's see how it did in our testing. A basic of e-bike safety is effective braking, which is why we put all the bikes that we review through a brake test. Now, to test the setup of the Revv1, I rode the bike up to 20 miles per hour before stopping, then I measured the distance and repeated that 3 times for a clean average. The overall result was a stellar 19 feet even. Now I say stellar because this is the 4th best result we've gotten on a moped-style e-bike, and it's about 2 feet under the average we have for all the e-bikes we've tested. Brakes are surprisingly only one part of the equation of stopping well though. The bike is really heavy at nearly 94 pounds, and while that presents some challenges for moving the bike when you're not riding it, I found it seems to stop in a straight line really easily, so you stop quickly and really controlled too. The Revv1 Dirt can be set to Class 2 or Class 3 speed limits, so I tested it in both settings to see what kinds of speeds it produces across the assistance levels. It also has an off-road mode, so I tested out the top speed on that. Let's see how all the tests went. All right, so this is the speed test for the Revv1 Dirt. As is the case with almost all moped-style bikes without any motor assistance. I mean, you feel the weight, you feel the lack of leg extension, so this is definitely an e-bike. Let's get access to the E part of it. So, moving to pedal assist 1, was going about 7.5, 8 miles per hour without any motor help. It was a pretty good jolt of life there to start out. It shows we're going about just around 13 miles per hour here. Slowly climbing up to about 14. Yeah, that's pretty good. You can see the power starting to back down a little bit, so we'll move up PAS2 now. This pedal assist, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's a good amount of power. You can feel the acceleration. Motor's humming a little louder, but it's moving. Climbing up to 18 miles per hour, 19 and a half. Go to pedal assist 3, see what that does. I'm moving my feet pretty fast at the pedals, but it's a single speed drivetrain, so again, it's just, I'm not getting much bite here. But you can see, I mean, it's accelerating all the way beyond the 20 mile per hour mark, into about 22 and a half. Now it's starting to slowly back down. Yeah, now it's going back down, respecting that 20 mile per hour line it's supposed to be keeping to, and then pedal assist 4 and 5. Kind of do the same thing. 4 is now sticking a little bit closer to 20. 5 is also sticking right around there. So yeah, it hits the speeds pretty quickly. Well, let's see how it does in Class 3 mode. All right, so now we're testing things out on the Class 3 settings. Right now pedaling around, going about 11.5 miles per hour in PAS1, climbing a little bit more up to 12. Let's go ahead and move into PAS2 though, see where that takes us. Feel that acceleration kick in. It's not overwhelming though, like it's got a good natural sort of speed increase. Getting up to about 16 and a half miles per hour, close to 17. Let's move into PAS3, see where that takes us. Now at this point I'm just spinning the pedals. There's not much bite into how I'm turning these, but getting about 21 miles per hour, 21 and a half. And this is all, I gotta say, pretty effortless pedaling on my part, 22 miles per hour. It's a lot of fun though. I'm gonna slow down a little bit into this turn as we move over to PAS4. This is getting upwards of 24 miles per hour. Hopefully you can still hear me over the wind. Woo! 25, topping off around 25. We'll move to the final level of pedal assist. It's giving me full juice. 27 miles per hour. It's still climbing. You can still see, I don't know if you can see the power bar readout, but it's still full bore all the way up to 28. Yeah, flirting right around that line of 28, 28.1. So going a little bit faster up to 28 and a half. So, I mean, overall, definitely hits those faster speeds, and it feels really good, like the way it actually handles at that speed. But let's talk a little bit more about that later on in the studio. All right, Revv1 Dirt 0 to 20 throttle test. On your mark, get set, go. Picking up speed pretty quickly here. And pretty well. But it's going to be interesting to see how it does without the speed limit on it. All right, so I do have things moved over to the off-road mode of the Revv1 Dirt. Just make sure that you're familiar with your local laws. I understand where you can and cannot ride with this, but I'll go ahead and demonstrate just a little bit how this motor does when it's holding nothing back on throttle. So, I mean, the acceleration feels about the same. It ramps you up, but I mean, it just obviously keeps going. It's going real fast. So, I mean, I'm hitting over 33 miles per hour. I think it says the top speed is 38. But I mean, this thing feels rock solid. 36 miles per hour. I'm going to slow down into this turn here, but I mean, whew, that was a lot of fun. That was really fast, but I was very impressed mostly with just how stable that felt at that speed. But wow, let's talk about everything a little bit more back in the studio. Okay, I hope you all enjoyed the clip in off-road mode. I sure did. Anyway, let's recap the speed test. With no motor, I was pedaling around 7.7 miles per hour. In Class 2 settings, PAS1 went to 14 miles per hour, then to 18.5 miles per hour in PAS2, and from there, each of PAS3, 4, and 5 hit above 20 miles per hour, although it did overshoot the 20 mile per hour limit a bit in PAS3 before it backed back down. Class 3 was a little different and pretty well spread out. PAS1 went 12.3 miles per hour, PAS2 hit 16.8, PAS3 went to 22.3, 4 went to 25, and finally it wrapped up at 28.3 miles per hour in PAS5. Class 3 really had great incremental improvements for those who pedal. And yes, most people aren't going to pedal this a lot, but I will say that it's a little bit more pedal friendly of an e-bike than most moped-style ones are, but it's still no traditional commuter either. Be ready to embrace the throttle life, friends. That's my best advice for you. My main takeaway from this test was that the bike was clearly built to go faster than your average e-bike. It feels great at speed, period. The acceleration is a great blend of quick and manageable, and once it hits those top end speeds, it holds it pretty well. This is technically the longest wheelbase of any of the Revv1 models, and I think it helps it retain a planted feel even at high speed. So when it comes to hub motors, we hope to see a 1-to-1 ratio of a motor's nominal wattage output to a battery's watt-hour capacity. That usually is the key ingredient to ensuring a longer round trip that'll last most people a day, even on full motor power. The Dirt checks that box with a 1,000-watt motor feeding off the 1,040 watt-hour battery, so we were eager to see how that translated to miles on the road. But before we talk about the results, there are two things to cover. One, earlier this year we made a small change to our range tests where moped e-bikes are concerned. Instead of doing a PAS5 and a PAS1 test to evaluate a brand's range claims, we do just one throttle test to establish a floor value. The second thing to note is this was done on paved paths set to 20 miles per hour. So people planning to predominantly ride off-road might see lower results, especially if you're accessing the higher speeds of the Dirt's off-road mode. So, with that in mind, in our range test, the Revv1 Dirt traveled 27.56 miles while holding an 18.1 mile per hour average, and it climbed 503 feet in elevation. Admittedly, we don't have a ton of data on throttle-only results as it's a recent switch in how we test, but overall I'm happy with the range. It's a big, heavy bike that holds higher speeds pretty well, so 27 miles with zero rider input is covering a full day of fun or easily making a round trip for most people commuting. The throttle is modular, so if you only twist it partway, it will go slower. I would personally love to see an option to tie PAS speeds into the throttle's top speed at certain levels. That would help people better trying to max out the battery life. And if that 27 miles doesn't sound like enough to you, like I mentioned earlier, there will be the option of running a second battery that you can look into as well. Each e-bike we test goes on a little field trip to Hellhole. It is a wicked steep hill with a 1/3 of a mile climb that averages a 12% grade. Justin is our dedicated tester here for consistency, so I'll pass it over to him to see how it did.
All right, we are out here on this beautiful day doing the throttle test for the Revv1 Dirt, and I just have a feeling it's gonna have a good result. The motors felt super powerful, super punchy. And through this first steep section, it's kind of backing my initial gut feeling out. Dropped down to 12.8, 12.3, but feeling very strong. Yeah, so just about 12 miles per hour, 11.6, the lowest there. Motor-wise, I was gonna say kind of average, but it might even be a little bit less noisy than I expected. I'll let you listen through this next steep punchy climb and then right after. Yeah, so on that section got down to 12.3. Motor's pretty decent. Just on your left. Thank you. And yeah, it's flying here, 17.5 miles per hour. I think we're gonna have a really good result. We'll go to the tape and check, but I think we're gonna be pretty impressed with the Revv1 Dirt. Back out on the Revv1 Dirt doing the test that is generally my least favorite. That's a pedal test on a moped-style e-bike. Morning. And so far it's doing pretty darn well. 14.5 miles per hour, 14, 13.3, 13. And I'm very soft pedaling here, kind of, feel like almost like I'm running a Mario Kart. Obviously I have no leg extension. That's why these are my least favorite tests. And so how I actually judge these bikes is, do I have to put a lot of pressure down on the pedals, which just kind of causes a lot of strain in like my hip flexors. And I will say right now the Revv1 Dirt is passing this with flying colors. It's very easy to pedal. No, I don't have any leg extension. It's not what these bikes are. People don't pedal them. Morning. And I'm flying up this hill 17 miles per hour, 17 and a half. So I think it's going to do a very good result, and it's very comfortable.
The Revv1 Dirt had a terrific run on the hill, as I expected. In the throttle test, it reached the top in 1 minute and 13 seconds with a 14.9 mile per hour average. When Justin pedaled, well, not much changed. It shaved off just 1 second, reaching the top in 1 minute 12 for a 15.1 mile per hour average. Now, this marks the third Revv1 we have tested up that hill. We have taken the hardtail and the full sus model here too. Now with the Dirt, Ride1Up officially owns 3 of the top 4 fastest times of any moped-style e-bike in both hill tests. Its throttle test in particular is a standout, as it is the 17th fastest of nearly 150 bikes Justin has tested that included a throttle. You may have caught some of Justin's comments about pedaling. It's good by moped-style standards, but still not a lot of fun to pedal on hills. With times that were nearly identical, I'd encourage you to just throttle up the steeps and enjoy the ride. Bottom line here though, if you want something that'll make hills easy, the Revv1 Dirt has you covered. The awesome thing about the Dirt is how it can obviously thrive in off-road situations, but it does nicely on paved stuff too. Let's go out on one last ride to talk about its handling and comfort in different environments.
So this is now the 3rd different Revv1 model I've ridden. I've ridden the hardtail and the full suspension, and now here on the Dirt, I mean, it definitely is kind of what you would expect. Like, I mean, you've gone from most affordable to a higher price to the highest price, and the quality of the ride is really reflected in each of those pricing tiers. This one does feel like the best Revv1 to me for a host of different factors. I mean, it does have the most premium suspension. The tires are really fun and versatile. But one thing I actually noticed, if you go look at the sizing chart, it does even have the longest wheelbase. Now, I think part of that is to accommodate the more beefed up rear suspension, but I mean, in a lot of ways it does feel like the longest wheelbase. Like it just feels a little bit more balanced, feels more stable, and it really helps it handle speed nicely. So now the moped-style e-bike, I guess let me backtrack and cover some of the basics, but as a moped-style e-bike, I mean, it's going to fit basically anyone that can swing a leg over it. I think on the website, Ride1Up says something like riders from like 5'3" to 6'4", but I mean, we've got a 6'6" tester. He enjoys this bike a ton. And you're largely here for a throttle experience more than the pedal experience. So again, as long as you can comfortably stand over it, you'll ride it and enjoy it. There's not a lot of adjustment, and you don't really need it for something that you're going to be just throttling primarily on. The handlebar's kind of fixed, but it does have this nice rise and kind of sweep to this handlebar, which I really like. I've noticed it's got a little bit of flex to it though, like especially when you actually get that front end diving, but I mean, overall it's just good for keeping me, I'm mostly straight back, very comfortable here in the saddle. Let's go back and talk about the tire a little bit. So these are listed as a Nova custom mold tire. It's 20 by 4 inches, and the tread on this puts the chunk in chunky. I mean, it is seriously large. Go ride that around a little bit on the dirt here in just a moment and kind of show you what that's like. But I think what I was most surprised with when I came to the tire is I expected it to be a lot louder than the tires I've seen on the other Revv1 models. It's not substantially like more, noise just from riding around on the road. It rolls very like smoothly here on the paved areas that I'm riding it on. Overall, just really nice. Got a good grip into corners, good holding. But like I said, I'll kind of show you what it's designed for when we get to some of the dirt tracks. And then, so let's go back to the suspension as well. So on this one, the dirt model, you're getting the most travel. So it's this double crown fork, 150 millimeters of travel. It feels pretty good to me. Like there's a good amount of stiffness into it. These inverted moto-style forks are big, they're beefy. That's really nice. And I think the combination with the shock in the rear, I mean, you've got very nice adjustable suspension there as well. I've got that, I stiffened it up a little bit, but I mean, this thing just overall is so cushy of a ride. I think I even like this sportier saddle on this model, a little bit different. Another one of those differences compared to the other Revv models. But I mean, the whole thing just comes together, and it's such a nice experience. You kind of like float over stuff is just like the word that comes to mind whenever I'm like, absorbing some impact. It feels like I kind of float over it, like you get the movement of the bike and everything, but overall it's just really nice. And then the motor engagement I really like. So right now I'm riding it around class 2 mode, but I mean, it's got a good amount of acceleration. It does not, for something that, when you kind of compare the class 2 speeds to the unlocked off-road mode, for something that I know how powerful it is, I think it actually has a good amount of build-up and acceleration to it. It's not irresponsible, for lack of a better word. I mean, the acceleration, I've ridden some bikes where when they have fast top-end speed, the acceleration is like they're trying to get there as quickly as possible. This one, it ramps you up in a quick, but not too quick sort of way, which I really appreciate. So I'm testing out, dirt's in the name, so I'm going to test out its namesake, riding out on some local double track and fire road. I got to be honest, the Revv1 Dirt's is doing a great job out here. This is definitely where you're seeing the full benefits of the more robust suspension system and, the really chunky tires. I mean, everything's doing really good out this way. That 150 millimeters of travel on this dual crown inverted moto fork, I mean, it's got really good stiffness. It's helping keep me comfortable. The rear suspension, I've got that dialed in. For my preferences, riding it, fairly hard, but it's just, I'm floating over all of this stuff. This is rocky, it's bumpy. I've been on here with other bikes with not as good a suspension. You can definitely feel it. But I mean, this is doing a really good job, especially the tires. They've been doing good grip. And then of course, there's motor power plenty as we kind of head into this steeper thing. I mean, that was all throttle power, no pedaling on my part. Got into the top of this pretty steep hill. And then this is where you're gonna see, kind of those tires shine. This is a really loose dirt descent. And brakes and tires, it all adds up to an easy control going down that slope. So this is the type of bike, I don't know that people are going to be like, riding it in the dirt full time. I still think it's going to get a lot of mixed use on multi-purpose paths like this one, plenty of paved areas, but this bike really is set up well to just have fun. For me, romping in the desert, maybe for you in the forest or whatever your locale may be. It's set up well to just enjoy the wide open areas of double track.
So to wrap up the quality section, I'd just like to add that I think you're getting good value for the money. This bike should be thought of as a different animal from the HT or FS models. Those ones offer terrific value, but I think you're getting what you pay for with the upgrades of this one. It absolutely rides like a top-of-the-line Revv with the most, let's say, optionality. I thought of the other Revv models as great bikes, but this one still found new ways to improve. The Revv1 is a bike I already loved, but the Dirt model helped me find new ways to enjoy it. I ventured further off the beaten path than I had ever gone before, and the bike felt more than equipped for the challenge. Looking back on all the test results, it was towards the top in nearly every test compared to other moped-style e-bikes, and it still ranked pretty highly compared to all the e-bikes in most tests, period. The motor rips, the handling is terrific, it's very comfortable, and yeah, it just looks freaking awesome. There's a lot to like here if the Dirt fits your budget, and if not, it's got less expensive siblings to take a look at too. The bottom line is that the Dirt helps retain the Revv 1's legacy as a top option amongst moped-style e-bikes. Thanks for watching. I'm curious what you guys thought of the Revv 1 Dirt and what questions you have. Share it all in the comments below. If you're thinking of buying one, clicking our link in the description is the best way to say thanks for our testing. We definitely appreciate the support. I'm Griffin with Electric Bike Report, and I'll see you on the next review.